Here's the video project making bread, Troy Weigel, Grand Canyon University, Chemistry 113, June 22nd, 2011. This is what I'll be covering. The ingredients to make the bread, mixing the ingredients, fermentation of the mixed ingredients, baking, and then the final product. The ingredients. First ingredient, salt, sodium chloride. Sugar, or sucrose. Yeast, a highly active dry yeast. Yeast is not a chemical and has no chemical formula. Try looking at it at yeast as a single cell similar to any single cell in your body. These cells are made up of numerous types and classifications of chemicals. Doesn't that look yummy? Next is water, H2O. And yes, there is water in here. See that? There you go. Next ingredient is milk. Milk does not have a chemical formula. Milk is an emulsion of colloid of butterfat molecules within a water-based fluid. These particles are made of phospholipids and proteins. There are too many components in milk for it to have a basic chemical formula. The next ingredient is bread flour. Bread flour has a 12 to 14% protein content and is made from hard wheat flour. The high gluten content causes the bread to rise and gives it shape and structure. Comes in white, whole wheat, organic, bleached, and unbleached. Good for making breads and some pastries. Kind of like the donuts I brought to class the other day. And the last ingredient, wheat flour. Hopefully you can see the difference in the color. But whole wheat flour is a powdery substance derived by grinding or mashing the wheat's whole grain. The word whole refers to the fact that all of the grain, bran, germ, and endosperm, is used and nothing is lost in the process of making the flour. Now on to mixing the ingredients. Okay, now we start the mixing process. I'm going to take a quarter cup of the sugar. I'm going to take the 2 teaspoons of salt and mix it in there. And then I'm going to put the cup of milk. And the last thing I'm going to put in is a half a cup of boiling water. And as you all know, I'm a little dangerous with that hot stuff. So I'll try to go real slow and easy so you can see it all. Okay, here goes the boiling water and the sugar. Now for the milk. At least it's not boiling. And the salt. I'm going to get 1 more tablespoon. It's close enough. And mix that all together. Now I have to take a packet of yeast into a half a cup of warm water. Not boiled, but warm water. Mix and let stand for 5 minutes. So for 5 minutes, you'll get to have a break. Okay, the 5 minutes have passed, and now I'm going to go ahead and add the yeast to the mixture. It's in there. Didn't spill it. Add the 2 cups of the wheat flour. And I'm going to add 2 cups of the white flour. Bread flour. And I'm going to get my brand new blender I bought from Walmart. Real cool one. Blend this up. Don't put me in this.
You're not.
Okay. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Did it start?
It's going.
Now the next part of the process, a little technical difficulty with the camera operator, is kneading the dough. What the kneading process does is start to help with the fermentation, which I'll discuss here in a little while, the fermentation process. Now what you're going to end up doing is getting the yeast to act, and I'm going to be getting the air pockets that I need so I can have one heck of a good loaf of whole wheat bread for my classmates to share. Healthy stuff, just like the donuts I brought in the other day. And then when I'm done kneading, it'll be going into the pan, into the oven, and 45 minutes of baking. And during that time, I will be discussing fermentation, and I'll show you how bread rises. Okay, after carefully kneading, it's in a nice little round ball. It's going to have to sit in this bowl for 10 minutes and ferment, or as most folks know, rise. And as it's going through the 10-minute process, I'll try to videotape the progress of it, and then we will be discussing fermentation. This is after the first 10 minutes, and it's increased probably by about a third of the size. I have to knead it again and let it rise for another 10 minutes. So here, watch the kneading. It's real cool. Yes, I did wash my hands yesterday. Okay, now as you can see, the loaf or the ball has doubled in size. I'm going to split it in half and make at least one loaf of bread for the class. And then the rest will probably be whole wheat biscuits for the sometime photographer that I have helping me. Okay, the loaf has been put in the pan. It's in the oven. It's going to be baking for 45 minutes at 375 degrees. Now we're going to talk about bread fermentation, or the rising of the bread. During fermentation, the fermentation process of bread, sugar is converted into alcohol and carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide will form bubbles which will be trapped by the gluten of the wheat, causing the bread to rise. Because the bread fermentation takes a short period, only small amounts of alcohol are formed, most of which will evaporate during the bread baking process. Therefore, you won't get drunk by eating bread. What you have during fermentation is breakdown of sugars by bacteria and yeast using a method of respiration without oxygen. It is anaerobic. The enzymes in yeast break down glucose to give two products, ethanol, which is alcohol, and carbon dioxide. Fermentation processes have long been utilized in baking bread, making beer and wine, and producing cheese, yogurt, soy sauce, and many other foodstuffs. In bread baking, the bubbles of carbon dioxide trapped in the dough make the bread rise. In the brewing process, complex sugars such as sucrose are first broken down by yeast into simple sugars such as glucose. Glucose is then further decomposed into ethanol and carbon dioxide. The ethanol produced is the alcohol in alcoholic drinks such as beer, wine. The carbon dioxide puts bubbles into beers and champagne. However, again, because of the short time with fermentation for bread, it only makes a small amount, and that amount of alcohol is cooked off. And as you can see, here's a basic equation for fermentation. Glucose to ethanol plus carbon dioxide. The simple equation, as you can see, is CH6H12O6, which converts into 2C2H5OH plus 2CO2. In other words, you have your ethanol and your carbon dioxide. And to further illustrate that, a simple diagram showing you the process in breaking down. And yet, one more diagram showing you the breakdown. And there you have it. And shortly we'll have a final product. And here we have it, the final product, an artisan style of a loaf of wheat bread. Yummy.